Bohemian Rhapsody is a new film directed by Bryan Singer, and it stars Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. And this film is mainly a story about Freddie Mercury. You see him as a person and who he was in real life. But it also is about Queen and how they came into existence. I'm a huge fan of Queen. I love their music. They're probably my second favorite band of all time, next to the Beatles. That'll never change. But I've always loved them, and I've always thought Freddie Mercury is probably the greatest male vocalist of all time. And he was also a really interesting and fascinating person, so of course I was really looking forward to this movie. But at the same time, I was really skeptical because there was a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. At one point, Sacha Baron Cohen was going to play Freddie Mercury, but he left due to creative differences. Then they got Rami Malek, and then Bryan Singer came in to direct this movie, but he left all of a sudden, and they got another guy to finish the movie. But then I guess Bryan Singer came back because he has the directing credit on this movie. So there was just a lot of tension behind the scenes and a lot of drama that led to this movie taking years to actually get developed. And usually that doesn't end up well, but I had a great time in this movie. I really enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody. It definitely has some flaws, which I'll get into in a second, but overall I think they did a really good job. First of all, Rami Malek kills it as Freddie Mercury. He is so good in this role. I can definitely see him getting an Oscar nomination for it because he just nails everything about who Freddie Mercury was, from the mannerisms to the way he talks. A lot of the times when actors try to tackle these roles that are like legends in music history, they don't really pull them off too well, and they come off like they're just doing an impersonation of that character. But that was never the case with Rami Malek. He feels totally real. Also, I really like what this movie did with Freddie Mercury because they present him as this larger-than-life person, but they also did a really good job at humanizing him, and you see how he has his own personal struggles. Sure, he has fame and money and celebrity and all that, but on the inside he feels kind of alone because it's hard for him to connect with other people, and he doesn't have that person that he can go to. And I thought that was a really interesting thing for this movie to focus on. I thought it was going to be mainly about the making of their music, which is there, and when it is there, it's awesome. But the fact that they got a little bit more personable with Freddie Mercury was cool. One thing that I was really concerned about going in, and I think this will be the same for a lot of Queen fans, is how they were going to handle Freddie's sexuality, because that was such a big part of his life that I didn't want it to be something they just glossed over or that they alluded to in a couple scenes and never came back to it. And luckily, I think they did a good job. You see how he kind of comes to terms with the fact that he's gay, and he accepts that as a part of who he is, and you get to see how he processes that, and I really appreciated that the script devoted enough time to it. I will say though that the first like 30 minutes of this movie are kind of rough, because they try to set up all these things that you have to do in a musical biopic, like Freddie's living at home with his parents and they kind of are a family that comes from nothing, and then he meets the guys and they become a band and they start making music together and they get a manager and all that stuff. It just felt really cliche, and like they were setting up all these things that you have to do in a musical biopic. Not only that, but a lot of it felt really produced and like a Hollywoodized version of their story. And it just took a while for this movie to get going, but once it did, I was totally on board. All the behind the scenes Queen stuff, like seeing them in the studio recording all their songs, is really cool, and they do it really well. And for the most part, this movie is well directed. All the music sequences in this movie are so much fun, and they're directed with such an energy that makes them really entertaining. And even though Rami Malek isn't singing because they just edit Freddie Mercury's voice over his, it all feels really seamless, and he feels very in the moment. So basically what you're getting is a really fun, exciting look at Queen's history and Freddie Mercury's story. But it's not without its flaws. I don't think this is a perfect movie in any way. Like I said, the first 30 minutes of the movie are really clunky, and I think a lot of that might be because there was so much drama behind the scenes that they had to reshoot some parts and it just didn't mesh together. And a lot of this movie feels very formulaic at times, like they're just going through every beat of making a musical biopic. You see how the band meets, then they get a manager and they start playing music, then all the record labels tell them that they're never going to be anything, then they start defying all the record labels and selling out concerts and all that stuff. It's just very much something we've seen before. But the reason it's better than your average musical biopic is because it's Queen. And they did a good enough job to the point where you can look past that because the music scenes are so much fun and Rami Malek's performance is so great. And this movie also has a ton of inaccuracies, but I kind of expected that going in because it's very much a Hollywoodized, theatrical look at their story. And I'm going to get into minor spoilers here, but I kind of have to touch on this to tell you about one of my issues with this movie, so just skip ahead if you don't want to know anything going in. But anyway, so Freddie Mercury was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987. That was after Queen's performance at Live Aid, which happened in 1985. During the third act of this movie, Freddie finds out that he has AIDS, and he goes to a doctor and they talk about it, and then at one point he tells the band that he has AIDS, and it's a big thing. They make it a big deal. But this movie ends with Queen's show at Live Aid. So they completely changed the timeline as to when he found out that he had AIDS. And they kind of just did that to make the stakes bigger for their show at Live Aid, since that was the big climax of the movie. Most of the inaccuracies I was okay with because they made this as a theatrical look at Queen's history. But that one I had an issue with just because they totally changed such an integral part of Freddie Mercury's story. So the first 30 minutes could have been a lot stronger. The movie does follow a formula that we've seen in a lot of other musical biopics. And there are a lot of inaccuracies that I kind of take issue with being a Queen fan. But besides that, this movie is a ton of fun. I think you're going to have a great time with it. Bohemian Rhapsody is a really well-directed look at Queen's story and who Freddie Mercury was as a person. Rami Malek gives one of the best performances I've seen all year. All the music sequences in this movie are incredibly entertaining. And the last 20 minutes of this movie are so good. If you're a fan of Queen, you're gonna love it. I honestly think it's some of the most fun I've had in a theater all year. But I don't really feel like I need to keep talking. Bohemian Rhapsody is a ton of fun, and definitely check it out if you can, because I do think it's worth your time. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Have you seen Bohemian Rhapsody? What did you think of it? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.